Good morning, students. Today we will read the fifth part of the chapter French Revolution. Let us read about the French Republic. On 10 August 1792, the Jacobins stormed the palace of Tuileries, killed the king's guards, and held the king himself as bonded and later imprisoned by assembly. In the following election, 21 years of men and above, regardless of wealth, got the right to vote. The Jacobins under Robespierre won elections, and 21st September 1792 Assembly abolished monarchy and declared France as the Republic under Robespierre and renamed this assembly as Convention. On 21st January 1793, Louis XVI was guillotined publicly. What is meant by guillotine here? Guillotine means it was a machine which was made up of two poles and one big blade that a guilty person will keep his head there, and a blade will throw on his head and he will be killed. So Louis XVI was guillotined publicly, and the Queen Marie Antoinette, she was also guillotined later. Robespierre's state policy was what? Let us read. Now, Robespierre government issued laws placing maximum ceiling of wages and ration meat. Peasants were forced to transport their grain to the cities and sell it to the prices which were fixed by the government. Expensive white flour was banned for all the citizens. Now all will eat brown bread of wheat. Equality was also sought to be practiced through forms of speech and address. For example, as no one will be called as sir or madam now, all are citizens. Churches were also shut down and their buildings converted into barracks or offices. Such type of changes brought Robespierre. Reign of Terror now. What type of this period was? The period of 1793 to 1794 was referred as the Reign of Terror. In this period, ex-nobles and clergy members of other political parties, even number of his own party, who did not agree with the Robespierre's policies, will be imprisoned and then they will be sent to the court, and if they will found guilty, they will be guillotined. Robespierre pursued his policies so strictly that even the supporters began to demand moderation. And finally, Robespierre was convicted by court in July 1794 and arrested, and on the next day sent to the guillotine. He was also guillotined. Now, rule of directory. After the Robespierre, who ruled? Ruled by directory. Who made this directory? The fall of Jacobin government allowed the wealthier class to seize. Was reintroduced, which denied the vote to non-propertied section of society. It provided for two elected legislative councils. Two legislative councils were made, and these then appointed a directory also. An executive made up of 5 members. This was meant to safeguard against the concentration of power in one hand. So these two systems were made to keep watch on each other, directory and councils. But what happened? The directory and councils, they started to clash with each other, and the directors often clashed with the legislative councils, who then sought to dismiss them, and they dismissed finally. The political instability of directory paved the way for the rise of military dictator Napoleon Bonaparte. Now, this type of instability was spread in the France, and the benefit of this instability was taken by the Napoleon Bonaparte. Now, let us read about the rule of Napoleon. An army chief under King Louis XVI, namely Napoleon Bonaparte, crowned himself Emperor of France in 1804, where the situation of a country is internally poor, third person comes and take its benefits. As a modernizer, he set out to conquer neighboring European countries, dispossessing dynasties and creating kingdoms. He introduced many laws such as the protection of private property and a uniform system of weight and measures provided by the and also provided decimal system. Initially, many saw Napoleon as a liberator who would bring freedom for the people, but soon the Napoleonic army came to viewed everywhere as the invading force. And finally, and in a war of Waterloo in 1815, he died. Thanks. Next we will do in next video.